Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Premier Injuries Daily Update. Speaking ahead of the double game week 29. Now, before I start, we had a host of games on Thursday night. Now, the difficulty being is, one, we'll not hear from every Premier League manager ahead of the FPL deadline. And two, even the ones we've heard from, players will still be assessed 24 to 48 hours after that game. So if they have picked up any knocks or niggles, we won't necessarily know. So I'm relying on the eye test and a smattering of post-match comments and what I might have picked up along the way. Now, only 3 games on Saturday, so we'll kick off there first, and then we'll see what we can do with the rest. Brighton entertain Liverpool in the early kickoff. Graham Potter basically confirms they have just one confirmed absentee. Of course, that's Adam Webster, suffered a setback in his recovery from a groin problem, likely to keep him out until after the international break. So that means Enoch Nwepu, he comes back from a hamstring problem, but he will be managed carefully because he's been out since mid-January. Also, Jeremy Sarmiento, he is available if Graham Potter wants to call upon him, but I think he's only had around about 20-ish Premier League minutes in his career so far, so it's unlikely that he's going to be involved. I was surprised when East Basuma was benched last weekend, but we do know that he picked up a knock to that knee. It wasn't massive, but it was enough for Graham Potter just to take him out the firing line, rest him a little bit. He's trained as normal this week, so he could be back in that starting 11. For Liverpool, Roberto Firmino, he's been training fully with the squad since before the Inter Milan game. Of course, he didn't make the matchday squad. They decided to just err on the side of caution and hold him back a little bit, so he should return. And we're waiting to find out what the situation is with regards to Ibrahima Konate. He did not make the Liverpool squad due to illness. Now, there was no specifics behind that, but what Jurgen Klopp has said, while we've got no players injured, there are some potential COVID absences to both players and staff. So they're waiting to do further lateral flow tests on Friday to determine which of those players and staff may be absent from the squad on match day. Next up, Brentford. And they're taking on Burnley. Thomas Frank, basically a full squad to choose from. We know Josh Da Silva is suspended. He's serving the second game of that 3-match ban, a dismissal that he picked up against Newcastle. There were a couple of concerns last weekend, but thankfully they were just precautionary withdrawals after they took the lead at Carrow Road 3-0. That's turned out to be the case. Christoph Aya has been past fit, and also Christian Norgard. He's absolutely fine. Like I say, he complained of a little bit of tightness in his thigh, but they've both been cleared. They are fit and available. For Burnley, the extent of Ben's knees is a little bit more serious than first thought. Sean Dyche was hopeful that it was just an impact injury, but further imaging has revealed a hairline fracture in his fibula. Now, that's a non-weight-bearing bone, so in the grand scheme of things, it isn't too serious, but we will have to allow nature to take his course. Now, in terms of the data, we've seen these types of return to play in and around that 6-week period. Could be slightly before that. I think one of that springs to mind, maybe Joe Ledley. It was about 31 days, but he did have the European championships, I think, to aim for there, so that expedited that return to play. So realistically, maybe in and around that maybe 4, 5, 6 week mark, but it remains to be seen. Also, Matai Vidra, he was on the verge of a return following quite a lengthy injury, but in training had an awkward fall, twisted his arm and dislocated his elbow. Now, he is training on the training pitches outside on the grass, which is good news. He can help to maintain those base levels of fitness, but it's obviously non-contact at the moment. We'll see what happens after the international break. Of course, Burnley this weekend don't have another game for 3 weeks after that. The rest are pretty much as you were. Eric Peters, minor knee problem. Again, that break will probably do him a lot of good. Dale Stevens is training, but whether he's going to be included in the squad remains to be seen. Johan Berg Gudmundsson, he's more of a longer-term absentee. Now, Manchester United, they have the late kickoff on Saturday. They entertain Tottenham at Old Trafford. The big news, Luke Shaw looks like he's going to miss out. He's still testing positive for COVID. So Alex Telles probably start at left back. However, Raphael Varane, he has been cleared. He's rejoined the group in training. He's been with the group since Wednesday, so he should be absolutely fine. Now, that could mean that Harry Maguire drops out of that starting 11. You understand, Ralph Rangnick isn't a big fan, so maybe Varane partnered alongside Lindelof, although we have seen Lindelof go out to the right, dropping of Wan-Bissaka if he does decide to keep faith in Harry Maguire. Elsewhere, Edison Cavani, he's trained, should be available. Just want to urge a note of caution there. He trained for 3 days ahead of the derby and he wasn't included. And also Cristiano Ronaldo took part in a full session on Thursday, expected to do the same on Friday. And in doing so, that should put him in contention for the game, and I fully expect him to be a part of that squad. And if fit, he absolutely 100% starts for me. Also question marks with regards to Scott McTominay. Nothing too serious there. It's a calf-related problem, but Ralph Rangnick said he doesn't like risking muscular issues, quite rightly so, and potentially, if he did, that would rule him out of the Atletico game on Tuesday in the Champions League. So one just to watch. For Tottenham, Antonio Conte, Sergio Reguilon will probably make a return to the left-hand side of that midfield, maybe in a 3-4-3. And that's because Ryan Sessegnon suffered another hamstring setback. No timeline at the moment. It doesn't appear to be too serious, but the main concern is that's his 4th already this campaign. So that's a worry, and they need to get to the bottom of that. Japhet Tenganga also ruled out, and Oliver Skip. He's still suffering from groin pain. It's been almost 2 months now, and I would suggest that both of those players will probably not return before the break either. Now, let's have a whistle-stop tour of the rest. Arsenal, Emile Smith-Rowe looks to be fine following illness and then subsequent COVID. That kicked them out of the last game. I expect maybe a return to the bench. Arsenal could be unchanged. Takehiro Tomiyasu, he's being managed, that calf problem. It's not the original calf problem that kept him out for so long. He returned, had minutes from the bench, and then in training suffered a little setback, but that was the opposite calf. So again, that's just a more protective from Mikel Arteta. Sorry about that. For Aston Villa, again, back-to-back wins. Great win, 4-0 win at Southampton. They went Ellen Road and followed it up with another 3-0 victory. Steven Gerrard made one change for that game. That was the recall of Lucas Digne, who had previously tested positive for COVID. Can I say any changes this weekend? Maybe, maybe not. Tyrone Mings looked as if he had picked up a couple of knocks. Nothing too major. But again, I say we haven't had a press conference, so read between the lines. Just something to be aware of. Ezri Konsa is on the bench again, back after COVID. So he could come into the team. Otherwise, it's basically just Marvelous Nakamba out until early April. Is the only player definitely sidelined for the Villains. Where else? Well, Chelsea. Lots to talk about at Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel was very vague with regards to his team news prior to the Norwich game. He spoke about the fact that it was really just Ben Chilwell who had been struggling with injury, but it later transpired that Reece James is out now with a muscle problem, not related to his recent hamstring issue, but suffice to say it's bad enough to keep him out of this, and I expect the next few games as well, so maybe after the break for him. Callum Hudson-Odoi hasn't played since the FA Cup win. I think it was over Luton. It looks to have aggravated an Achilles issue. We know there have been problems there in the past, and he has been in Barcelona having injections to try and manage that. Now, he does have an outside chance of maybe returning in the Champions League. It remains to be seen. Marcus Alonso has been back on the training pitches. Of course, he's missed the last 3 now because of COVID. Will he be included in the squad? Well, certainly he's available and coming in contention. I do expect Tuchel to make a few changes again, like I say, with that Champions League tie certainly in mind. Cesar Azpilicueta, he'll be checked forced off at half-time at Carrow Road after complaining of stomach cramps. Maybe there's a little bit of a bug going around that camp because it also ruled Christian Pulisic out of that game against Norwich. And if you missed our earlier update with regards to Ben Chilwell, there was some hope, some optimism, even some suggestion that he could return and play again this year. this season after he was pictured on the training pitches down at Cobham. That isn't the case. Thomas Tuchel said that he was just, the sun was shining to go out and he got a little smell of the grass and that was it. He was just doing a little bit of ball work, nothing too strenuous. He's on schedule. He's progressing really well, but to think and consider a return this season, you're way off the mark. For Everton, Ben Godfrey and Demari Gray, they're the two main returners for Everton. You can see Ben Godfrey maybe coming back into that starting 11, particularly after the heavy defeat to Tottenham. Also some suggesting that Dele Alli is in with a shout as well. We're waiting to hear about Michael Keane. He was forced off at half-time in that game on Monday night because of illness. Nothing too serious, but again, just not 100%. For Leeds, Jess March is becoming a pretty dire situation for Leeds. They're 2 points above the drop zone, but I think Everton and Burnley have both got at least 2 games in hand on them. So if they win one, then that could effectively drag Leeds into it. Now, that might force Jesse Marsh into taking a little bit of a punt on Patrick Bamford. Of course, we know he's had ongoing problems, ankle, foot, hamstring. He has had a cameo appearance on Thursday night. They'll see how he reacts, and if he's good and he's got the all clear, then Jess Marsh may be tempted to throw him back in. We do know that Junior Firpo will be out of the match. Suspected medial collateral ligament damage there. That could mean that Llorente coming into that back line with maybe Stuart Dallas going in at left back. That's a possibility, but it will cause a little bit of a reshuffle. Anybody else? I'm not really expecting anybody to return for Leeds. For Leicester, we know that Jamie Vardy has been ruled out. That opens it up for either Padson Daka or Kelechi Iheanacho. And of course, he scored the second goal in Leicester's win over Rennes in the Europa Conference League on Thursday night. Ricardo Pereira hamstring will be checked. And also James Justin. Now, he played 60 minutes in that European game after recovering from injury. Nothing sort of untoward there, just making sure that he's all right. There was maybe an outside chance that Wesley Fofana could return. We know he's been out for the majority of the season due to a fractured dislocation of the ankle, or a dislocated ankle and a fractured fibula, but also recently contracted COVID. Now, this weekend's going to come too soon. The earliest that he could come into Brendan Rodgers' thoughts would be in that second leg tie against Rennes next week. Manchester City, unusually we heard from Pep on Thursday. Great, so that eased up a little bit of that lunchtime frenetic hour or so. But the big news is, and because it's come so early, it doesn't really help us as fantasy managers, because Manchester City have a day off from training on Friday. The squad won't reconvene until Saturday, and that'll be after the FPL deadline. 2 main talking points, or the one main talking about, was João Cancelo. He missed out in the Champions League midweek because of illness. We don't know if that was COVID related or not, but what Pep said is there's hopeful that some of those players who missed out midweek, which will include Nathan Ake, can return to the squad. Of course, what we do know that Ruben Diaz will be spent around another 4 to 5 weeks, possibly on the sidelines. For Newcastle, some big updates. 9 games unbeaten, a great come from behind win at Southampton, but the game potentially came at a cost. Now, we went into the match without Joe Linton. He's managing an ongoing groin problem. That's been the case since Eddie Howe arrived at the club back in January. So he will be assessed. Basically, it was too painful to feature down at Southampton. That enabled Bruno Grimash to come into the team, and he was forced off just after the hour mark. We're thinking it may have been lost in translation, but we think, and because his English isn't great, that's maybe just a touch of cramp. It would be great to see him back again. He scored a fantastic goal down at St. Mary's. We're also waiting for news on Alan Saint-Maxim illness. He didn't travel to the South Coast. Emil Kraft, we think he came off fatigue-related cramp. Fabian Shaw, very similar to Joe Linton, carrying a little bit of a niggling groin problem. Jamal Lascelles could come in to sit alongside Dan Burn if that was the case. Anybody else? We know Kieran Trippier, Callum Wilson, they're still very hopeful of a return this season, while Federico Fernandez has a slight side strain. It's probably going to keep him out of the first game. He could potentially return after that. For Norwich, Billy Gilmore back in contention. Obviously couldn't face his parent club. Dean Smith confirms it's only Adam Ida and Andre Odomelli, the two injury absentees. Sam Byron, question marks, but that's more fatigue due, returning after that long-term absence. It's not an injury as such. The player's just managing after that long-term injury. Max Aarons is a player who's likely to start at right back anyway. For Southampton, no major changes there. Nathan Tiller is training, so he could return to the matchday squad. That would leave Alex McCarthy and Lianco as the two players sidelined. For Watford, no press conference from Roy Hodgson. We did see Josh King go off at half-time at Molineux. Now, in recent times, we've had a hamstring problem, and also prior to that, a back issue. And that early withdrawal indicates that, he still isn't 100%. And if João Pedro can recover from COVID, then he may be thrown back into that team. Now, initially, he submitted a positive lateral flow test on the Wednesday. It was negative on the Thursday, and that's why he couldn't play. Now, if he submits a negative on the Friday, then they may take that first one as being a false positive. And if that's the case, he will be available. If it comes through positive again, then unfortunately he will be ruled out of the game. He can't be considered unless you submit a negative lateral flow test on your 5th and 6th day. For West Ham, Declan Rice came through 90 minutes for West Ham in the Europa League. He had quite a bad bout of illness, but he come through that absolutely fine. The only major talking point for West Ham is the possibility of Jared Bowen. Well, that isn't a possibility for this weekend, certainly. Now, initial scan results and subsequent have showed that there isn't any major damage to in and around that heel, ankle, Achilles. They can't quite find the problem. The worrying thing here is Jared Bowen was in a great deal of discomfort, could not weight bear when he was taken off at Anfield. But like I say, imaging shows that there is no real serious damage there. So they're scratching their heads a little bit with that one. There is still no timeline. And finally, at Wolves, Bruno Lage, despite the 4-0 win, he has been known to change things up, despite, like I say, a great result midweek. Now, we know that Nelson Semedo and Kijana Hoover, they're the two injury absentees, both hamstring. Everybody else should be fit and available and in contention. It was a big one. So keep your eyes and ears peeled through our social media, and also check out premierinjuries.com. All of the latest news and updates will be added there. I'll try and answer as many questions as you can. If you like this content, please press that subscribe button, because there's a lot of watchers, a lot of viewers, but we don't have the amount of subscribers to reflect that. And if you have any questions, please pop them in the comment box below, and we'll see you again very soon.